Welcome back after the coffee break. So I have the pleasure of introducing Adam Long to you today. So Adam is also known as the Ethical CEO, TM, I imagine. He's an expert in building and growing businesses that matter. He's the executive director of Conscious Step Socks That Fight Poverty. He launched and scaled that social enterprise, among many others. He's founding CEO of Smarter Drafter, legal software powered by AI. He took this groundbreaking piece of technology and turned it into Australia's fastest growing legal tech company. As a partner at Step Change as well, he advised hundreds of companies around the world, including Sony Pictures, HP, and ANZ Bank, on business growth and marketing strategy. At the moment, he is the Chief Growth Officer at Humanities, through which you all bought your tickets, at least I hope you did. And he's also an ethics advisor to the Garvan Medical Research Institute. I'm going to hand over to him now. Please make him feel welcome.
Hey everyone!
Hey,
So, I'm challenged and I'm excited. I'm excited because something like this weekend is such a high density of cool ideas that matter. I'm challenged because the stuff that I'm about to take you through, this is the shortest version of this that I've ever done. Usually I spend about 4 hours or more as a minimum, half a day, working with CEOs to go through this information. Now, I'm going to teach you some skills today. My job is to explain them as clearly as possible. My job is to explain the frameworks and equip you with those. Your job is to apply it. So we're having an interactive session today. I can show you the muscle, I can't go to the gym for you. So your job is to work out, how does this fit in with your ideas? How does this fit in with your organizations? How does this matter to you? Now, if you'd like to do the advanced course, you can actually take on a different job, and that's to make sure the person next to you applies it to them. It's one thing to learn something, it's another to teach and make sure someone else gets it. So who's in for the advanced course, making sure the person next to you gets it? Great, if you're next to one of them, you're lucky. Who's suddenly thinking, oh God, he's doing the hands up interactive? Yeah, okay. And who's not going to put their hand up no matter what the guy up in front of Yeah, I know who you are, guys. It's not television, you can't change the channel. This is interactive. I do want you applying it. And that means I want this to be interactive. I want you taking notes. I want you figuring out what works for you. I want you interrupting and asking questions. I want you challenging. I'm happy to hear all of that. I might not answer everything as we go. I might ask to park it to the end, so excuse me if we do that. But it's to make sure that everybody gets the most out of the session. We ready? Awesome. Marketing strategy. I hate that word, strategy. Only word I hate more than strategy is marketing. Okay, so marketers gave marketing a bad name. And strategy is a word that pretty much means nothing because people use it so loosely. People use strategy when what they mean is a plan. They use the word strategy when what they actually meant was an ambition, a goal, an aspiration. So we're going to look at strategy today. And as we'll cover today, the essence of strategy is choice. Making choices about where to focus, limited time, limited energy, limited attention, limited hours after work, limited books you can read, limited blog posts you can write. Focusing that on where you can actually get the best result. Now, the reason strategy is so hard is because of this element of choice. It's really hard to say no to things. It requires a decision. Now, anyone study Latin at school? Anyone? Hey! Oh, you're in the spotlight now. Okay. we'll do an open interactive thing. Does anyone know what the suffix side means? C-I-D-E. Decide? C-I-D-E. Might become clear if I tell you a few others. Kill, homicide. It means cut. Yes, it does. Well done. Round of applause, please. The suffix side means to cut off, and when we decide, we cut off options. Now, why is that hard? It hurts to cut things off. It means saying no to really good ideas. It means building a movement and gathering people together to get excited about what you can do, and then looking at 99% of the good ideas and saying we're not going to do that. Because if we just focus on 1% of the ideas, we'll go further together. But it's hard to do that, isn't it? We get attached to our ideas, we want to bring people into our movement and get them excited as well. So this is going to challenge you too, because I'm actually going to encourage you today to cut off as many things as possible. And I've got a framework to help you get there. And I can still hear that music going, which is just beautiful, but let's Ooh, Riptide by the Hot Potato Band. That's one of my favorites. Anyone know Hot Potato Band? Yeah, aren't they awesome? Okay, so I'm going to find out a little bit about your ideas that matter in a moment, but I just want to start by telling you how I got into the world of effective altruism and more from a commercial side. And it starts with this young lady right here. Her name's Jacobia. Not that one, the one behind her. That's Jacobia. And I met Jacobia while volunteering in the Philippines in 2005 with Engineers Without Borders. And I noticed that in this community that I was working in, Jacobia was following me pretty much everywhere I went, which is kind of cool. But hang on, it's a Tuesday. Shouldn't she be at school? Thursday, she's still following me around. Friday, she's still there. Didn't seem like she was going to school at all. And actually, quite a lot of the kids, girls in particular, weren't going to school. So I had an opportunity to meet with the mayor of that village, the community there. And I pitched this, I posed this to the mayor. I said, why is it that so many girls in particular aren't going to school? And the mayor, he said, look, we're doing the best we can. We get the funding we have, we give it to the schools, we're doing the best, but you know what? It's just really hard to find good teachers around here. The training for them just isn't good enough, and teachers can't keep the kids engaged. I go, oh, that's interesting. A couple of days later, I ended up at one of the schools, and I spoke to one of the teachers, and I said, why do you think so many young girls are not coming to school? And the teachers, well, they pointed the finger at the parents. They said, we've got such a limited budget, we do the best we can, we try and keep the kids engaged, but if the parents don't value education, if they want their kids working, there's nothing we can do about that. So I talked to Jacobia's parents. I said, why do you think Jacobia doesn't go to school? And they were really frustrated. They said, we do everything we can. We pack her lunch, we send her off each day, but she doesn't go to school. She sneaks off and comes back, and we're not really sure why. So I asked Jacobia. I said, Jacobia, why aren't you going to school? And she said, the toilet's been broken for months and I hate peeing in the street. That's a reaction I had too. What hit me in that moment was that tiny little things like whether a toilet is working can impact her opportunities, her ability to get an education, her ability to achieve all the things that we're able to achieve here as well. And I learned in that moment that small changes all combined can have an enormous impact altogether. That hit me like a ton of bricks in that moment. So I worked with Engineers Without Borders for quite a few years and thought, all right, it's time for me to focus on something where I can make a difference. So I had this idea for a sustainable 3D printing business. I tell you what, I'd always wanted to be a CEO. I'd raised $100,000 from an investor in Melbourne. First thing I did was get a business card that said CEO on it, give it to my friends, give it to my mum. I had an investor. I thought, this couldn't fail. And people kept telling me that when you start a business, you have to be more passionate about it than anyone else, because people will tell you no. And you know what? I was more passionate about sustainable 3D printing than anyone else out there. What's the problem with that? It means there's no market for it. And it took about 9 months to go from that to that. I lost $100,000 of investors' money. I lost my entire life savings. I was broke. I came to terms with this on Christmas Eve of 2011. I was in denial up until that point. There were two people I went to university with who I had to sit down with on Christmas Eve and say, sorry guys, there's no business to come back to next year, we're broke. Tell you what, I feel about that big that day. And in the months afterwards, while queuing for Centrelink, which is an amazing thing, by the way, like to help people get back on their feet, like, yeah, huge fan. While queuing for Centrelink, while working in call centers, while taking on any damn job I could, I'm like, why didn't this work out? The idea was great. The idea was meant to revolutionize the world. Sustainable manufacturing. You print something, when you're done with it, you put it back in a printer and print something else. Why didn't it work? And it didn't work because, one, nobody knew who the hell I am. Two, nobody knew the hell about 3D printing sustainability. And three, I had no idea how to change that. I didn't know how to do sales and marketing, and the idea was not enough. A good idea just simply isn't enough to make change. So like, okay, I've got to do something about this. I've got to start learning about marketing and sales. So wrote up a resume, sent it out to no fewer than 52 different marketing organizations and didn't get a single interview from them. Why would you? Sustainable 3D printing, industrial designer? What do they know about marketing? Nothing. That was the point. I got so desperate that I went to a conference where some marketers were speaking. And when I got to question time, they said, any questions? I said, I've got a question. Went out the front, got down on one knee like I was proposing to them and said, you don't know me, but I know you and we should be together. Can I have a job, please? And there were like 200 potential clients of theirs in the audience. And they were like, woo, yeah, give them a job. So this guy said, oh my God, please get off the stage. You can start on Monday. And I did. So Most of the lessons I'm sharing with you today I actually learned from consulting through Step Change. Ended up becoming a partner, one of the owners of the business there from that initial proposal. And had the opportunity to sit down every day with business owners and unpack their business, what was working, what wasn't working. It's kind of like doing an MBA where every day the case studies are real. It was good fun. I can highly recommend it. Had the opportunity then to start Conscious Step. That's why I'm not wearing any shoes. These are socks that fight poverty. Each pair is partnered with a different charity. The ones I'm wearing support Room to Read. 3 books go to schools in Southeast Asia for every pair we sell. Another will plant 10 trees for every pair that we sell through. Trees for the Future. We've planted about 90,000 trees to date. Hello, Luke. Here's one of the fans of Conscious Step. Matt Damon wears the socks. Al Gore, Mark Benioff. We started at a stall in Glebe Markets with an idea, putting it out there, just testing it with the people who turn up at Glebe Markets, trying to find out if it was a good idea or not. We're now in a few thousand stores around the world and got a few fans. Smarter Drafter I won't talk about. No one's heard of it because we're really good at targeting lawyers. Most lawyers know about it. In fact, they're probably using it. They won't tell you about it because it means they can draft their legal documents in a couple of minutes, but they're still charging you days' worth of work for it. And I'm spending about half my time at the moment with Humanitics, growing them. Before this conference, who knew about Humanitics? Yeah. Before today, who knew about Humanitics? Yeah, so there's still a few hands down, right? And I think this is a really good illustration. Humanitics has better features than Eventbrite. It's cheaper, and it's a registered charity. All the booking fees go to education projects. Great idea. Most people don't know who the hell they are. Even people using the platform to actually buy tickets. This is the key point I want you to take away. A good idea is never enough until it's actually known. So these are some of the organizations I work with now. We won't talk about them. I want to talk about who's tried to get your attention today. So go with me if you will. I'll get you just to relax, take a breath and shut your eyes. And we want to do a little visualization. From the moment your alarm went off today, or those healthy people who somehow naturally woke up to sunlight, I want you to start stepping through your day and think about how many people, brands, or ideas have tried to get your attention today. Most of you probably reached for your phone as the first thing. There's a few notifications there, maybe a couple of messages, maybe a little bit of scrolling through Facebook. Oh, there's a couple of ads. And then you got ready, and as you opened up the bathroom cabinet, there's some messaging on the Colgate toothpaste tube and various packaging wanting to get your attention. If you had the, I don't know if people still do this, the free-to-air TV on in the background, there's ads going on there. On the way in, how many billboards you saw. That's a lot of people trying to get your attention, isn't it? Okay, you can open your eyes and, wasn't that nice? No, it wasn't, because there's a lot of people trying to get your attention every day. And you've got an idea that matters, and right now you're competing with Telstra spending $2 million a week because they've got ideas that they think matter, relating to phone plans and internet and the like, but they're trying to get into people's heads, and they're spending $2 million a week to do it. Anyone here got a $2 million a week budget? Business cards are up here just in case you want to. We're seeing on average 5,000 messages a day just from marketers. Everywhere there's a little logo, there's a marketing team out there who said, oh, let's put it there and make it bigger. Maybe people will recognize us and buy again. That's what you're competing with. So if you want to build awareness, change a government policy, launch a charity, launch a business, you're going to have to change people's minds. And this is what we're competing with. It's a freaking Shark Tank, okay? You are competing with Telstra. You are competing with Coca-Cola. Even if your message is about recycling in a local community, even if it feels small and focused, there's a lot of other people trying to get their attention. So what are we going to do about that? We're going to make some choices about where to focus. Because unless you have a $2 million budget, unless you've got CNN at your beck and call, we're going to have to do things a little bit differently. So where are we going to focus? This is Marketing Strategy 101. And usually when I talk to people about their ideas that matter, they tell me about the change they want to see in the world, and then they tell me the medium that they're going to do about it. So this is how it goes, right? They go, here's the medium I'm after. They go, I want to do a podcast, and the podcast is going to solve climate change. So I'm going to do my podcast. And then someone else will say, no, I need to set up my Facebook page because that's what you do when you start a community, surely. And then someone else says, let's write some blogs. And someone says, let's make a video. Someone else says, let's do a VR experience. Most people start with the medium. the channel. And then inevitably the next question is, well, what are we going to say on it? Like if we're doing Facebook, what do we say every day? What content goes on our blog? What do we put on the billboard? What do we write in the letter to the minister? Like what do we put on our placard at the rally? Message. And then someone says, all right, well, who's going to see this? Like, who's actually logging onto our Facebook? Is it just for millennials still? What's going on there? If we get 10,000 likes, who actually sees that? If we send out all these letters to the community, who's actually going to notice that? And then finally, someone says, but guys, what kind of result do we expect from this? What's wrong with this picture? It's backwards. It should be the other way around, right? And it's amazing that the number of times you'll now that you're aware of this, you'll pick it up, right? You'll sit in a conversation with someone and they'll have an idea and they say, Facebook page, let's get that up and running. And you'll think, hang on, no. This is backwards. We need to ask the other question first. What result are we actually trying to achieve here? Then the question is, well, who do you actually need to speak to get that result? And this is where things start to get easier because the answer is never everyone. Might feel that way sometimes. Might feel like you need to get awareness for everyone in the whole world in order to get the change you want. But actually, if you're clear on your result, it gets really easy about who you need to speak to. Really easy to work out, well, what message do they need to hear in order to change their attitude or behavior? And then it's an easy question, well, where are they? What's the best channel to get in front of them? This is the essence of marketing strategy. Not enough people do it because they get caught up in creativity and winning awards and let's do social because someone told me we always have to do social. You don't. You actually don't. You need to work out the best channel to get that message in front of the right audience to get your result. So that's what we're going to be stepping through today. Now, can someone help me out and just let me know when I've got 15 minutes left? I didn't start the timer. Who's doing that? You are? Thank you very much. Okay, good. That'll keep me on track. So let's start with the result here. So working out the result you're after starts with a good diagnosis. This is where you put on your doctor's hat, get out the prescription pad and say, what's going wrong here? If you want to make a change in the world, if you want people to buy your product, donate to your organization, change their behavior, what's stopping them? What do you actually need to shift in terms of attitude or behavior? Because that's essentially what marketing can do. Marketing can change an attitude, or it can get someone to do something. It can encourage that behavior. And you want to get really clear on that. And frankly, the only question worth asking is, if I changed just one thing, what would make the absolute biggest difference? Now, I'll give you some good and bad examples here to help make this clear. So we're not talking about your purpose or your mission at that stage. So we actually want to break that down into steps that contribute towards purpose and mission. I'll come back to that in a minute. So you don't want to say our result is to build awareness of ocean plastic. How do you know when you've got there? I have no idea. You want to get something really, SMART goals, get really specific. Make ocean plastic an election issue in the city of Sydney. Okay, that's a much clearer objective to go after. We don't want to say change the discourse on refugees. Really hard to know how we're actually getting there. But we do want to focus, maybe we want 1,000 people to declare their support for refugees. Building political cover for someone to actually, in Parliament, to actually introduce some new legislation or do something different. You don't want to say be the best-selling sock. You want to get clearer, like if we sell 1 million socks and we can plant enough trees to make a solid dent on climate change in the way that we want to. So purpose is really important. You want to know where you're going, but in order to make a strategic choice around it, you need to break down the steps towards it. And the great 21st century strategist Elon Musk has done this really well. Elon Musk's purpose is to basically keep the species alive. He wants to make humans interplanetary. So that's his purpose. But what the hell do you do today, right? Where do you start? Who do you talk to? What attitudes or behaviors do you start? What do you start doing? So he's broken it down, right? Okay, in order to make humans interplanetary so we can survive when a meteorite crashes into Earth or AI takes over and nanobots kill us all, we need to get a sustainable population on Mars, which is 1 million people. To get 1 million people on Mars, we need to get the cost of transit to Mars to less than $500,000 per one-way ticket. He figured that's enough to probably get 1 million people over there. In order to get the cost down to $500,000, you need mass, cheap space travel. You need reusable rockets to do that. In order to get your reusable rockets up and running, you need enough commercial contracts with NASA, and he's building his own internet network at the moment, which justifies enough rocket launches to mass produce these rockets. Right down to the day he started when he's like, all right, well, if I'm going to get to this point, Do I buy an ICBM from Russia? That was one of the options he considered. Or do I go from scratch? Which one gets me close to winning a NASA contract? So that was the steps that he went through from purpose right down to, okay, the result we're after today is we need to win a NASA contract. Great. His job isn't to transform the discourse on interplanetary travel or convince everyone in the world to do it. Just needs to convince like 5 people at NASA. That's pretty achievable. That's a good step towards getting humans interplanetary. So that's the lens I want you to bring to this. Whatever your purpose or your mission is, break it down to what's the result you need to change next? What's the one thing you can change? And I'll give you an example. Like this is an iterative process at each level. You might get right down to the level of looking at, well, how are people signing up or buying whatever it is you do? And you might break down, okay, well, here's the number of website visits, here's how many sign up to email, they're qualified by a salesperson, they agree to a trial, and that's how many purchase. You can look at that and go, oh, hang on, if I just changed one of those numbers, what's going to make the biggest difference the soonest? And you look at that and go, all right, well, 10 people agree to a trial, 2 of them purchase. What if we got that up to 4 instead of 2? And all your effort should be focused just around that. Forget your social media, forget building brand awareness, forget PR. That's actually the biggest opportunity in this example. So you can see this is a worksheet. We don't have time to do the worksheets today, but I'll put my LinkedIn up at the end and you can send me a message if you'd like a copy of the worksheet so you can work through them yourselves. So getting clear on your result means breaking that down to if we change just one thing, what would that be? How are we doing for time? I'd love to get you discussing this, but I don't think we have time. We're going to do super fast and high level today, so that's the question you want to ask yourself. One result, what do you get to? So then the next question, if that's the result I'm after, how few people do I need to reach to make this happen? This makes your life so much easier all of a sudden. It doesn't matter that there's 28 million people in Australia. What's the smallest group of people you need to reach your goal? And then you want to monopolize them. You want to 100% of a small group of people's attention is better than tiny percent of a lot of people's attention. Okay? And the reason for that is effective frequency. So effective frequency is the concept in marketing of how many times does your audience need to hear your message before they actually take action. I'll give you a hint, it's not once. One letterbox drop is not enough. One view of a billboard is not enough. One Facebook ad popping up is not enough. We need to remind people again and again. Who's got kids? Yeah, great. So you say, kids, clean up your room. Do they do it? No. You tell them again, do they do it? No. You threaten them a little bit? Maybe. You keep going. Like, these are people who rely on you for sustenance, and they don't even listen to you the first time you say something. What hope do you have of changing people's minds who, for some reason, don't believe in climate change at all, right? These messages have to go again and again. And that's so much easier to do with a small group of people getting in front of them again and again and again until it's effective. The frequency of your message to get effective. Yes?
What about this? I don't know, it's a theory of diffusion of innovation. Early adapters and the legacy. Could that be used in there as well?
Yeah, so the diffusion of innovation basically takes the same effect, that you don't start trying to sell to everyone. You start looking at your early adopters first. And you monopolize them. You want 100% of early adopters embracing us, talking about it, because then the late adopters get excited about it. They're the ones who don't want to take a risk, but they're following other people. And I don't know if you can see, the screen's a bit blurry, but you can see this is a bit of a target. My favorite example of this is actually Facebook. So at the time that Facebook launched with a world-changing idea, let's put the entire social experience online, they weren't the only social media company. There were literally thousands of them out there, all talking about, we're out to change the world. We're for anyone who wants to do anything online. How the hell do you recommend that to someone else? Hey, it's for anyone, and you can do anything on there. Yeah, but what do I do now? So Facebook started with a small group of people called Harvard University, and they got 100% of Harvard University using Facebook. Monopolize them. Then they went a bit broader and said, all right, now we'll open it up to the other 20 Ivy League universities. Got pretty close to 100% of Ivy League students on there, monopolized. Then they said, okay, well, now we're for college students around the world. Then we're for the families, and now the fastest growing I think they've hit saturation there as well, but the over 65s until recently was the fastest growing market on Facebook. At the same time, those thousands of other social media networks that were out for everyone who could do anything, where are they? Didn't monopolize it. I'll give you another example for someone who's in the room. Where are you? Kua Coffee? Oh, there you are. Hi, Mon. So this is Mon from Kua Coffee. Kua Coffee is an awesome social enterprise that are sustainably harvesting their beans from Uganda and basically getting them into coffee machines around the world. Now, I sat down with Darcy, one of the founders of this organization. He came to me because he wanted advice on a crowdfunding campaign, running a Kickstarter, getting as much awareness of the coffee as possible in order to get their offices to sign up for it. Like, what's wrong with that? Well, that's starting with the medium, isn't it? Kickstarter is a medium, it's a channel, it's not the result that we're actually after. And in talking to him about the business, we actually broke down that they're early stage. 6 people working in the organization. They'd taken 6 months off from their real lives, as they put it, in order to see if this was going to work. Their real objective was to make enough money so that these 6 people would not have to go back to full-time work and real lives. Okay, so we break that down to an actual dollar figure. We broke that down to number of kilos of coffee that need to be going through. And we broke that down to audience. What's the smallest number of people they need to speak to in order to sell that minimum number of kilos of coffee? And they could be going for cafes, they could be trying to get Woolies and Coles on board, they could be going for a subscription service online, they could be going for offices. And when we broke down where the least competition is and the most likelihood to switch, it was actually in offices with more than 200 people, and they needed 50 offices with more than 200 people in them. Now, there's 3 towers in Barangaroo that have that many offices in it, 50 offices of more than 200 people in it. So for them, thank you, the recommendation was drop the crowdfunding, forget the social media, go and stand in the lobby of those towers at Barangaroo until you get your 50 offices with 200 people in it. Now, they're at the point, I believe next month you're actually now starting to pay staff, which is a phenomenal result. But at that same time and energy could have been invested in social media, PR, crowdfunding, all of that. You want to get really clear on your result, really tight on your audience, because then it's really easy to go and stand in their lobby and speak to them. Phone them up directly. Contact them with enough frequency to make this work. So I feel like that's an excellent case study. Kua Coffee, you can download a pack to show your office on why you should switch across, or talk to Mon if you want to give that a go. So this starts to get easier, right? Now, instead of going, we've got a Facebook page, what do we write every day? Well, all we need to focus on is, what does that audience need to hear in order to switch? The word switch is really important here, because what we're actually talking about here is theft, ethical theft. If you want someone to change where they spend their dollars, you're switching that from somewhere else. They already know where they're spending their dollars. They're not spending it, they're saving for an overpriced house in Sydney. But they've got an idea of where it's going. If they've got a behavior that you want to change, you're changing it from something. So the message you need to tell is the message that gets them to switch their dollars from wherever they're going. And this is really important, right? This isn't about what you want to say to them. It's about what they need to hear in order to get the result that you're after. So there's some good worksheets on this, but I won't do this. And this is a really good commercial example of it, right? There's so much we can learn from the commercial world. Coca-Cola and Pepsi go head-to-head on a daily basis. Now, there's a company called Nielsen that tracks advertising effectiveness. And they noticed that there was a real difference in flavor between, no pun intended, between Pepsi's ads. They had 2 kinds. Coca-Cola is the market leader. First brand of brain, you ask for a Coke and the wait staff go, oh, I've got Pepsi, is that okay? Like, that's a sign of a real market leader. They're in front, they're number 1. And so Pepsi comes along and they run an ad where it's like a beautiful summer's day and they're on the beach and the kids are doing fun stuff and they open up a bottle and goes psh, everywhere. Sales go up at Coke. Pepsi runs an ad where they do a taste test challenge. Finally, sales go up at Pepsi instead. Now, this is the same thing, right? When Burger King runs ads just about, tasty burgers, aren't you hungry? Yeah, sales actually spike at McDonald's in the hours after that ad runs. Okay? Ironically, when McDonald's runs ads about chicken, sales go up at KFC. So just talking about the problem you solve, or the facts, or education is not enough. In fact, it's more likely to reinforce an existing behavior than it is to get people to switch. You've got to give people a reason to change what they're doing and make that really compelling. God, we could talk about this for hours, but we don't have time to. So, medium. Then what's going to be the best way to get that message in front of that audience to get that result? It starts to get really easy, right? And I want to give you a couple of examples of how unexpected paths are actually getting much better results. So I worked, the first one, iPad Beats Conference. I worked with a firm that wanted to talk to the heads of accounting agencies. Couldn't get meetings with them, paid thousands and thousands of dollars to sponsor a stall at conferences in order to try and meet as many of them as possible. I spent $25,000 getting a booth at an accounting conference. And then we said, well, you know, for the number of people you got to speak to, you got 5 people out of that conference. That's $5,000 per person that you actually wanted to speak to. You know what's cheaper than that? An iPad. What if you sent them an iPad in the mail that was locked with that 4-digit code, and the background image said, this is for you or your kids, I'll give you the 4-digit code if you jump on the phone with me for 15 minutes. $400 a pop, 90% conversion rate. That's more effective. And so this is why this is really powerful, right? When you're really clear on exactly the type of audience and what they need to hear, you can start to get channels right in front of the right people instead of spreading yourself really thin. Next one, I ran a crowdfunding campaign for something I called the Panda Pad. It was just a little design project I'd done, laser cut bamboo notebook. Got into the Daily Telegraph with that one. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Also got into the Go Get newsletter. The Go Get newsletter outperformed traffic from Daily Telegraph by an absolute mile. Why? Because the type of people who would buy a sustainable bamboo notebook are the types of people who live in Glebe and Newtown, have a pet, are interested in sustainability. Yeah, they're likely to be subscribers to Go Get instead of owning a car. It got right to the right people instead of what would feel like a, yeah, cool, Daily Telegraph. No. Less effective than getting to the right people, the smallest group of people. And nudges beat billboards, right? So this is a more classic behavioral economics experiment around getting people to reduce their electricity usage. Control, put up billboards in the neighborhood saying, don't forget to turn off your lights, keep your energy usage low. The alternative, put on the electricity bill, did you know you were using more electricity than your neighbor? Which one's going to be more effective? The one that inspires that sense of competition and look out the window, yeah, they left their porch light on tonight, we're going to get them this time. So the job here isn't to get on billboards, it's not to get into the mass media, it's to get in front of the right people as frequently as possible to get the result that you're after. Again, there's a worksheets on this that you can do. So if there's one thing that you take away from today, it's just this. Result, audience, message, medium. Do it in that order. Look, here's some helpful things to help you remember RAM. Pick whichever one is most relevant for you. Computer geeks, there you go. It's something for everyone on there. But I want you to remember this. So when you're sitting down with your team, when you're deciding where to invest your energy next, and someone says, let's do a flyer, let's write a white paper, let's do a blog post, let's do a podcast, just pause for a second and let's go back to what's the result we're actually trying to achieve here? What's the next milestone? Who's the fewest number of people we need to reach there? What do they need to hear? And then what's the easiest way to get that message in front of them? I'll give you 2 quick examples. So this one's from Conscious Step. So Conscious Step started with this idea that we'd be selling men's socks, because surely men wear more of these socks, that we'd be selling mainly online through the supporters of charities. Turns out all 3 of those things were wrong. Turns out more women buy men's socks than men do, and they buy them as gifts. Turns out charities struggle to promote themselves, let alone their partnerships, so wasn't much traffic coming from there. Turns out we sell 80% through stores rather than online. Who knew? We were wrong on all fronts, but that's why you test your strategy, right? So we had a challenge with the charities. We're like, okay, well, we're supporting these amazing charities that have these big databases, and Father's Day are coming up. The result we're after is to get the charity to promote us in their newsletter. Now, if you just ask a charity to do that, they'll give you a line of text somewhere around Article 20 in a newsletter that 15% of people open, and it's not a great driver, right? So we said, right, how do we get them to put us in prime position, or even better, give us our own exclusive email? Well, who do we need to talk to make that happen? Sure, there's the social media manager or the marketing manager at the charity, or even better, the CEO of the charity. What's the message we can have? Well, what if we made them the front line of the campaign? So you can see two CEOs of charities posing for our Father's Day campaign. We've got the CEO of Room to Read in the US. He was this was a campaign around for the dad who has everything. And that's know-it-all dad. A know-it-all dad has memorized Wikipedia and is always coming up with trivia at the dinner table. What do you get? That dad who has everything? You get in the socks. Foodie Dad, the CEO of Action Against Hunger, provides nutritious packs of, it's called Plumpy Nut. Just a little side note, tastes like peanut butter, but basically when kids come into refugee camps malnourished, they give them this because it's a real hit of nutrients to get them back up and running. There's Foodie Dad, and he's doing his Instagram photos and the like. Do you think they put that at the top of their newsletter? Oh yeah, it's their CEO. It's about them instead of us. Quite a few of them got us our own emails, and that was a really powerful campaign. Here's another one, just as a live example that I'm working on at the moment. The attitude towards refugees is something that really, really upsets me. I'm not comfortable with a country, with a world that treats refugees the way they do, locking them up and the attitude towards them. And the issue that I find is that most Australians are actually all on board for having more refugees coming in. They're actually on board with having people come into the community. They just don't talk about it. There's this silent majority, and what we hear are these really polarized, loud voices at either end. And the silent majority in the middle aren't really talking about it. So we're like, okay, the result I'm after here is to provide some political cover for politicians to actually take a principled stance instead of a populist stance. To do that, I want to talk to the people who are the silent majority and actually get them to, well, you can see the idea already, actually demonstrate their support for this. But that's still a really big audience. A silent majority, I don't have Telstra's budget to reach the silent majority. So the process here was to spend $1,000 on Facebook ads trying combinations of just about everything you can think of. Combinations of matte designs, combinations of audience, combinations of different messaging, text. Do we appeal to the competitive nature? Do we appeal to a principled nature? Do we appeal to look good in front of your friends? Do we appeal to send a message to politicians? And I tell you what, after $1,000 of Facebook ads, I know exactly which design is going to sell to who. Turns out it's going to be middle-aged women aged 55 to 65 in inner cities. I don't know how to target them very carefully when this goes onto Kickstarter, which is the ultimate medium and the way we're going to reach them in the end. So you can see in all of these, the pattern is the same. It's simple, it's just not easy. And all I've done today is show you that this framework exists. That was my job. Your job was to apply it to your ideas that matter and start breaking this down. Start making decisions on where are you going to focus your effort. Who do you need to reach to get there? What's the message they need to hear rather than what you'd like to say? And then where's the best place to put that? And if you bring this up every time you have a conversation about changing minds or changing behaviors, it will make your life easier. Your ideas will go further. Thank you. So if you'd like the set of worksheets, I'm more than happy to share them with you. Best way to reach me is just to add me on LinkedIn. So if you do that now, just when you add me, please add a note or send me a message afterwards so I know where you've added me from and I can make sure you get those, but more than happy to do that. So what do you reckon? Time for one question, two questions? Great. Q&A time. You know how it goes. What would you like to know? Yes?
My question is, so you're talking about some sort of marketing campaigns that are kind of unique and creative and focused on getting a result first and message, RAM, whatever.
Yes!
Result, audience, medium,
you got it.
Message, medium. So I don't have any experience, and I sort of have this vague concern about going into some sort of unique strategy that, well, look, this seems like it's going to work for me, but maybe it's going to fail, but for some reason it's obvious to anyone who's ever done a marketing campaign.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say to that kind of feeling?
So your job as a change maker is to not do everything yourself. Your job is to bring forward the resources that you need. If you're not confident in this area, have a coffee with someone who does. Like, ask them about it, step through it. But considering most marketers start with a medium instead of a result, you get to take control and say, actually, no, let's just focus on the result that we're after, not the next shiny idea. That's what you want to avoid. So ask for advice, but have a model so you're getting the good advice and separating that from the brainstorms. So, right.
Thank you for your talk. You gave one suggestion for working out who your audience is, like spending $1,000 on Facebook and trying different strategies. If you don't have $1,000 or you're not really sure how to do that on Facebook, do you have other suggestions of how you can work out who your audience is?
Yeah, sure. So conscious step was by setting up a stall at Glebe Markets. Reasonable guess as to where the audience would be, but then actually talking to people about why would they buy this? Is it buying it for them or is it for somebody else? Is it older people, younger people? Like there's so many ways to do it just by talking to people. It starts broad to, you want to have conversations first and surveys second. And I feel like that's one of the traps that people fall into. They like to send out a survey, but without a clear idea on who you're sending the survey to, it's very hard to verify that. So start with the conversations. Do you have a particular idea that you've got in mind?
Well, I was doing a Facebook post for this conference.
Yeah, amazing.
And I don't know, like we're obviously trying to get people to come to the conference.
Yep.
And we have some idea of who's an EA, but I don't know exactly who the people that we're trying to reach are.
Great. Well, you've got a good idea of who actually bothered to pay. So now you've got data for next year. And that would be the first place to start. Absolutely, the data sources they're ready for you. You've got all the other conferences and indicators of that around the world. That should give you enough data to have a really finely targeted campaign. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. Well, I'll be around probably till the end of lunch today. So if you'd like to have a chat, catch me before lunch is over when I head off. Thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure.